Thank you and good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the City Council Finance Committee meeting to order, and I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Evans,
Present.
Councilmember Harris,
Present.
Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
Okay, we will get started with introductory number 246, establishing a city policy for paid leave for victims of domestic violence. Questions, comments, concerns? Councilmember Lightfoot, I know that this is something that you worked on. I want to thank you for that. I don't know if there's any other comments you want to make on the policy that we're gonna move out of committee.
Yeah, I just want to thank Tassie, legal, Tim and his staff, Shawnee, Mitchell Curry, all of the individuals, the mayor, all of the individuals that worked on this particular legislation. This is something that I think is going to be a blessing for individuals that are in these type of situations. And it's going to be extended, as we worked on today, to also immediate family members as well of our employees. So this is a policy that I think is really going to, we'll hear about it later from folks, that's really going to help a lot of people. Hopefully it doesn't have to help a lot of people, because hopefully we don't have a lot of people in these type of situations. But if they are, this is a tool that we have to get people help. So thank you, Mayor, administration, Cassie, legal, Tim and your team. And I hope that I get my colleagues to support this great legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 246?
Move it.
Second.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
the clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 247 is authorizing an amendatory agreement for independent legal counsel. Questions, comments, or concerns on 247?
Move it.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 287 is authorizing professional services agreement with WXXI Public Broadcasting Council for broadcast of city council meetings. Questions, comments, concerns?
Move it.
Been moved. Second.
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 Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 288, authorizing an agreement with General Code LLC for the publication of the city charter and code. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Seconded by Councilmember Harris. Questions, comments, or concerns? I know everyone will stay up late at night reading the general code and the city charter.
It happens.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
The clerk will enter the
Introduction.
affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 289 is authorizing an amendatory agreement for expert witness services for the law department. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Been moved. Second.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introductory number 290 is amending ordinance number 2020-164 as it relates to the charges for the 2 South Avenue open space districts to be inserted in the tax rolls for the 2021 fiscal year. Questions, comments, concerns?
Move it.
Been moved. There's second.
Second.
Second, been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
Clerk will enter
Madam
the
Clerk?
affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 291 is a local law amending the city charter with respect to the Division of Planning. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Hearing none, I entertain a motion. Moved by Councilmember Patterson, second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Last introductory for the committee is a local law amending the charter of the city of Rochester with respect to the budget requirements for the city school district. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Councilmember Patterson, second. Seconded by Vice President Lightfoot.
Okay.
Just for the vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye. Councilmember Harris abstained. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-0-1 into the record with Councilmember Harris abstaining.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other business to come before the Finance Committee? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I call the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee to order, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Councilmember Lupian,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Here.
All right. Introductory number 248, authorizing a lease agreement with UGI Energy Services. Councilmember Gruber, you had a significant number of questions. Were your questions were you satisfied with your answers?
Councilmember Patterson, are you suggesting that I had more questions than usual?
No, simply you had a great deal of interest on this item.
No, the answer was fine. I appreciate it.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns on this item? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by,
Second.
who was that who said second? Okay, Council Vice President Lightfoot. At this time, I call for a vote. All in favor of the item? Aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed to the item? Item passes. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Nice adjustment, Malik. We'll be stealing that, all of us, I imagine. Introductory number 249, authorizing a lease agreement for the Office of Public Integrity. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a
Seeing none.
question.
Okay, Councilmember Lupian.
So I just want clarification. So in my question, I asked about moving, the rationale for moving. And the reason I asked that is because on one of the drawings, it says relocate to the front of the building. Was that just the original architectural kind of layout of the space that's, so they're definitely not moving, right?
Yeah, that's the same space they've been in.
Okay. So it must have just been an old drawing. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this item? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. Moved
So
by,
So moved.
moved by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember
Second.
Lupian. All in favor of the item? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item? The item passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 250, authorizing a lease agreement for the Northwest Neighborhood Service Center. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by Council
Second.
Vice President Lightfoot. All in favor of the item? Aye.
Aye.
Can we get somebody else say aye, maybe?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All opposed to the item? Item passes. Introductory number 251.
Excuse me, 1 second, Councilmember
Oops, sorry.
Patterson. The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Beat me to it, Hazel.
Thank you, Hazel. Good job.
You're welcome.
I'll slow it down. Introductory number 251, amending ordinance number 2020-99 as it relates to land acquisitions for the Flower City School number 54 campus modernization project. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Hallelujah. No.
Seeing no questions, comments, and good comment. All in favor of, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by
Second.
Council Vice President Lightfoot. Thank you, sir. And now we vote. All in favor of the item? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item? Item passes.
Councilmember Harris, do you have to abstain?
Not on the committee.
Not on the committee.
Okay. Okay, the clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 252, authorizing a loan agreement for the North Clinton East Main Culver Road rental housing project. Thank goodness, thank God, well done administration. Hats off to Home Leasing. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this item? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. Moved by
So moved.
Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Lupian. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item? Item passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Okay. Introductory number 253, authorizing the transfer of a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for Charlotte Harbortown Homes. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none.
I have one.
Oh, question, Councilmember Gruber.
Thank you. So I guess I'm just curious about the kind of what's urging the sale to happen. Maybe I'll start there. What is prompting the sale at this point?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have that information.
I guess to get to the larger point, I mean, one of my concerns is that some of these really big affordable housing facilities, it seems like there's an opportunity for some companies, many of whom are not in town, to own them as long as they're profitable, and when pilots are running out or when there's a reason to start having to put more money into it, then they look for other places to sell them to. And I'm wondering, like, is that something that, is there a strategy to avoid that? I mean, obviously we can't stop people from selling their property, but is there any strategies we can have to avoid that behavior?
Yeah, I don't know how much we could regulate that. I mean, it's the private market and people are going to sell for a variety of reasons. I don't know what the particular reason was here, but the marketplace of who's buying them is also a small population of investors as well.
Right.
I can add a little to that. What typically happens in these cases is when the tax credits are exhausted, the only way that new money comes in is by a new owner coming in to establish a new basis so he can get on track for a new set of low-income housing tax credits. So it's a matter of expiration of the tax credits. They always flip when the tax credits expire.
So does that, in some ways, I mean, is there a likelihood of us ever being able to collect tax on a property like this?
Very small likelihood, because once it gets into this niche of housing, it usually stays there. And in order, sometimes they get converted to condominiums and whatnot, but it's rare. It's typically a matter of tax credits and the incentives provided by the federal government for improvements. So there is an incentive for a new owner to come in, make new improvements, and then start a new, tax depreciation schedule.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that all of that makes sense from, their business perspective. I think the result though is that it's companies, many of whom are not based in Rochester, who are finding ways to generate profit here and have it leave. So I guess, that's not to say that we should not pass this introductory. That's not to say that we should not continue to do this work because it is the work that allows us to maintain affordable housing in our community. But it is maybe something that we can work on collectively to figure out if there's a strategy to prevent this from happening in the future.
The way the tax laws are set up, the only incentive to improve the property are provided by the federal government.
Gotcha. Thanks,
Councilmember-
Commissioner.
Councilmember Luther?
Yes, yeah, thank you. I wondered if we could find out what the rents are that are being charged, and kind of what bracket of AMI they're targeted at. And then if we can give an estimate of the taxes that we would have received versus the payments that have been made.
Sure, we can get that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember.
I just want to make a note on that, Gary, because on some of these projects, we assume that we would have received taxes on them if we did not have a pilot, and that's not necessarily true, because the only reason why we have this pilot agreement and the improvements on the property is because the properties are being rented, and they're able to do the tax agreements like Tim was talking about. So just because we have a pilot does not necessarily mean that if we didn't have a pilot, that property would be rented and that those property owners would be paying the full rent, because there are many commercial properties around the city that sit empty and that are taxed at a very low rate that's probably lower than a pilot agreement because of that. So I don't want us to get into a false sense of this is what it would have been, because we couldn't guarantee that.
Thanks, Mayor.
Seconded by Council Vice President Lightfoot. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time we vote. All in favor of the item? Aye.
Aye.
I got one aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed to the item?
Nay, I'm
Okay,
gonna be a no for now.
all right. So the item passes 3-1 with Councilmember Lupien in opposition.
Okay, the clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-1 into the record with Councilmember Lupien voting no.
All right. Introductory number 254, authorizing agreement for the Project Phoenix program. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I now seek a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by who?
Mary.
Seconded by Councilmember Lupien. This time we vote. All in favor of the item?
Aye.
All opposed to the item?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 255, authorizing the mandatory and intermunicipal agreement with the County of Monroe to fund enforcement of the lead-based paint poisoning prevention ordinance. Questions, comments, or concerns? Just a comment. Wonderful work in the transmittal. Wonderful to see that this is still continuing. Happy that the county is happy to continue working with us on this item. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this particular item? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
No, you know what? We're gonna let Mary get that one in for a change. So Mary moved it and Jackie seconded it. All in favor of, now we vote, all in favor of the item?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item? Seeing none, the item passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
All right, well, let the record reflect that we were joined by our other colleagues on council, save our vice president, hope she's feeling, save our president, hope she's feeling well soon. And this concludes the work of the Neighborhood and Business Development. Thank you.
Okay, BJ, is everyone in? Should I get started?
Yep, you can start as long as it's after 4:15, which it is.
Okay, then I'm going to call the Parks and Public Works Committee to order. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Peel,
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Here.
Introductory number 256, authorizing an agreement for a food waste prevention, donation, and organics recycling education and outreach program. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I will just say one thing. It's really remarkable how fast this is moving. So kudos to the mayor, commissioner, and the whole team. I know one thing that Commissioner Jones gets very passionate about is recycling. So we can see that when recycling is at the table, things are going to move fast, and this is a great thing for our city, and we're appreciative of how fast it's moving. Anyone have any questions about what is actually happening with this introductory? Okay, then I'm going to ask for a motion.
I do, sorry.
Go ahead.
I know we talked in agenda review about kind of the maybe longer term goal of municipal composting, and wondering, if this is going to lead to that, hopefully, and if so, is there kind of a time frame?
Well, we're
It has-
actually,
It has the potential to lead to that.
Okay, but there's no kind of like formal time frame right now.
The feasibility,
No,
the
there isn't.
feasibility study.
There isn't a time frame. This is a pilot. So it has the potential. We'll see how this goes, and then we'll let you know.
Okay, so the composting, the process for recycling organics right now would be kind of like a home-based system.
It's exactly what we told you at agenda review it would be.
I don't believe I asked that question at agenda review, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, if not, I will take a motion.
So moved.
The move
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 257, authorizing funding and an agreement for the Blue Cross Arena Riverside Edition. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 258, authorizing an agreement for the 965 Maple Street renovation and Forest Street Division relocation. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question. Really quickly, do we know how much the extension, how many square feet it's going to be?
Norm, do you have that information?
Actually, it will basically, we'll have the same building envelope, but we'll be utilizing the space better. And the expansion will be outdoors, outside, for storage of our equipment to make sure that the site is functioning as full as capacity for us.
Anything else? Councilmember Pio?
Yeah,
Nope.
I had the same question, but just wondering if we could get like a number of the square footage of the renovated area and the new construction together.
Actually, like I said earlier, the square footage will not change. We'll be
Can we
doing.
Just wondering what this,
Bigger
oh,
pardon?
the square footage is noted in the transmittal? I didn't see it.
The square footage is not noted in the transmittal. What he's saying is that the square footage wouldn't change from what it currently is, but there will be some external improvements for the property that we'll be keeping outside. But we could get you that information.
Thank you. I was also wondering if you could give an estimation of the overall construction costs.
That would be determined as part of this agreement here. Overall, we have a preliminary budget, but the actual real cost will be determined through this process.
Okay, we're going to take a vote on introductory number 258.
Sorry, I just had one more question.
Okay.
Can you say what the site survey includes and what kind of engineering, when it says engineering design, is that architectural engineering or civil?
That will be civil engineering because it's site. Architectural engineering will be internal. Landscape engineering will be streetscape, but this will be civil engineering because we're actually changing the site around to accommodate the equipment that's going there. And that's it. That's the purpose of what's happening with this, and then changing around the actual footprint of what's going on in the building.
Okay, and that's what the site survey does?
The site survey is for the outside of the building. What we're doing on the grounds, like I said earlier, what's happening with how we put our equipment and basically the layout of the external property and where we fit our equipment, where we put our trucks, where we put our trees and things of that nature. That will be part of the site survey. What will go on inside will be architectural work in regards to that part of the project.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's take a vote on 258. Well, first, can I have a motion?
Move it.
How about a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 259, authorizing term agreements for move management services. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Been
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 260, authorizing an agreement for parking garage evaluation and repair program services. All those in favor, well, any questions, comments, or concerns has to go first, right? Any questions, comments,
Move
or
it.
concerns?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 261, authorizing term agreements for civil engineering and transportation planning and design services. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 262, authorizing an engineering design services agreement for railroad crossings within the preventative maintenance Northwest Group 12 project. And I believe there's actually, we're first going to vote on an amendment for this. The amendment is to change the maximum total compensation for the agreement from $25,000 to $35,000. Before I entertain a vote on the amendment, Commissioner Jones, would you mind, or Mayor, would you mind? I've always heard 25,000 seems like the magic number with CSX. What made this have to go up to 35,000?
Commissioner Jones, if you want to talk about that, that's fine.
Yes, Mayor. Actually, we had feedback from CSX stating the amount of engineering at this particular location would need additional funds to meet that. They said approximately $5,000 more, and to be on the safe side so we wouldn't have to come back again, we increased it to by 10,000 up to a maximum of 35,000. Of course, if we did not use the entire 35,000, it will go back to fund balance, or it won't be expended. So basically, we're dealing with our crossing for CSX, and we're basically at their, I don't want to say mercy, but we have to do exactly what they do because they have the authority. We have to do exactly what they tell us to do because they have the authority and rights over that area.
I appreciate that. And you don't have to say it, but I will. We are at their mercy. And I believe that someone should do some investigative reporting. how much money CSX makes off of municipalities across the country, but that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. Let's vote on the amendment, changing it to 35,000. Can I have, or is there any other questions people may have?
Motion to amend.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So now let's vote
The
on,
clerk needs to enter that into the
The
record.
clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
great. And so now let's vote on introduction number 262 as amended. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take
Move
a-
it.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 263, authorizing an amendatory agreement and geometric changes for the East Main Street Improvement Project, a public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the July 16th, 2020 committee meeting. I just want to take a moment of privilege just to, again, commend the administration on this. This is, I mean, a lot of the talk about this particular introductory has been related to, you know, a lot of the back and forth with neighborhood groups, and there's been a great deal of work done by the administration, the mayor, the commissioner on engaging deeply with the neighborhoods over there, and that's appreciated. But I want to zoom out even further than that. We're also going to be building and constructing a really beautiful Main Street, and they call these Main Streets for a reason. And I think this is just really, really exciting. And just kudos to everyone involved and to everyone in the city who's going to get to walk, bike, or drive down Main Street in the future. So with that, I want to give my colleagues a chance to ask any questions or have any comments or layout concerns.
I just want to also echo, I'm so excited about this project, and the neighborhood is so grateful and also excited to see what it's going to bring and to be able to safely bike down Main Street and visit the shops. And I think it's going to be a great thing for the area. So thank you so much.
Any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Motion to consider.
Okay.
Second.
And second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 264, authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance of 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program aid eligible costs of the East Main Street Reconstruction, North Goodman Street to Culver Road Transportation Federal Aid Project and appropriating funds therefore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 265, authorizing geometric changes to pavement widths adjacent to 275 East Avenue, Interloop Transformation Site 3. A public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the July 16th, 2020 committee's meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Motion to consider.
I guess the one comment I would just make is for anyone who is listening or any council members who haven't, just walk down the Interloop. And I know it's there's a lot on our minds right now, but go back to when the Interloop was a moat and think about the transformation that is happening right now. It's just remarkable, and it's really coming to life down there. And this project seemed to happen really, really fast. So thanks to everyone involved, and let's take a walk there as a council, take a group photo at some point. Any other comments on this one? I hear Councilmember Evans made a motion, so if there's no other questions, I could take a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 266, approving geometric changes on Exchange Boulevard and the receipt of funding for electrical and lighting improvements related to the West River Wall Segment 1 project. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the July 16th, 2020 committee's meeting. I'm taking a lot of points of privilege, but I just want to say one last thing about this one. Commissioner and I talked about doing some honoring some folks around this legislation, but I think it makes the most sense to honor people when we don't have to do it through Zoom. So more to come on this really incredible project, which we'll all celebrate, but not when we're all playing Hollywood Squares. Any questions on this introductory for the administration?
Motion to consider.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 267, bond ordinance, of the city of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $755,000 bonds of said city to finance the city's West River Wall Segment 1 project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
And finally, introductory number 268, authorizing term agreements for structural engineering services. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
If there's no other miscellaneous business, then this adjourns the Parks and Public Works Committee.
At this time, we're going to call the Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation Committee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Lightfoot,
Present.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that we are also being joined by the rest of our council members with the exception of our Madam President. Starting off with introduction number 269, appropriating funds and authorizing an agreement with Rochester Area Crime Stoppers Incorporated. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns?
We adopt. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Go for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I am abstaining. I am abstaining from this particular vote.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-01 into the record with Vice President Lightfoot abstaining.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 270, amending an intermunicipal agreement with the school district for traffic and crowd control services. I know there were some questions around this. Any questions, comments, or concerns from any of our colleagues? If not, I entertain a motion.
Vice President Lightfoot, can I say something?
Councilmember Gruber.
Yeah, I have a kind of a larger thing to bring forward, and I want to do it in the most mindful way possible. So I want to start out by saying to the mayor and the chief, who I can't see on the screen, that I really understand the difficulty of maintaining public safety right now during the middle of a pandemic with lots of social unrest and a giant spotlight on municipal police departments across the nation. I think, to me, what makes this matter even more difficult is that right now, everyone across the country is asking a lot of questions. I think we're asking the same questions. How do we reimagine public safety? How do we effectively incorporate mental health counselors and social workers into public safety departments? And we have all these questions, but there are no answers yet. Even though a lot of people want there to be answers, we're going through the same thing as Minneapolis, Asheville, San Francisco. We're trying to answer these questions, which is actually why I'm very appreciative of the mayor and the mayor's leadership on the Commission on Race and Structural Equity and the chief's participation in it. And I'm eager to participate. I actually really believe, I've said it all along, I think this commission will provide a lot of answers to some of the questions that were raised. I think we're going to help create new programs. I also want to say, even though I voted yes on Crime Stoppers, I also think it'll help us transform programs like Crime Stoppers, which desperately needs to be adapted and modernized, even just the language that program uses. But while we seek answers, I personally have to draw one line in the sand, and that is with police overtime. I know the commission is going to look at this issue, but even before the commission is complete, I cannot vote yes on increasing the RPD budget for grant programs that predominantly fund overtime. Now, I heard loud and clear in the budget hearings from the mayor and the chief, and I appreciate this. I heard from both you loud and clear that we can't do wholesale overtime cuts because of the way the contract is written with the Locust Club. I get that. I do think there's things that we need to do better in terms of budgeting, and I even question 274, introductory 274, OMB said they're going to figure out how to incorporate these types of funds into the budget so that a month after we pass the budget, we're not doing these big amendments to it. But, you know, I would say that even on that side, the fact is that this is just one example of many of why it's so important for the city to get moving on a renegotiation of the Locust Club contract. I'm going to vote no on everything from here on out that adds money for overtime to RPD's overtime line. And I want to work with my council colleagues on a number of recommendations in relation to the Locust Club contract in hopes that we can actually get them to the table sooner than later to make some substantive changes to all this stuff. So that's my piece, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you. Well, you know, folks are certainly welcome to vote as they see fit, and I certainly understand that. And I do understand that folks have concerns and issues with police overtime. But I would, to paraphrase the Wiz, I don't think you should give up, just because you gave up walking doesn't mean you should give up shoes. Or just because you gave up shoes doesn't mean you should give up walking. Look, the overtime cost is because there are times when you need officers to come in over that contracted period of time. I understand your concern, and sure, we can definitely look at right sizing budgets and things along those lines, but it certainly isn't unreasonable to have that cost built in if it is unforeseen that there are going to be times when we're going to need officers to work more hours than they would normally work. Well, if they're going to work more hours than they normally work, of course they're going to earn the overtime. So if you don't have it in the budget, you still have an obligation to pay it. We still have a public safety responsibility that we have to meet. That doesn't change. So that's just my comment on it. You know, you vote the way you vote, but I'm always happy to see a budget that has that overtime cost built in, because that's this organization, the city of Rochester, and this council being a responsible entity. So that's my 2 minutes.
Vice President, can I just comment on that? I know you don't want to get into a debate. I'm not trying to get into a debate either. Perhaps I didn't make my point very clear. I want to correct.
Can I circle back around to you when we have Councilmember Lupien next in line? Councilperson Lupien, you have the floor.
Yes, you know, I commend that we did get rid of the SROs from the schools, but I have concerns about having police officers in situations to do crowd control in these public events. I know that they're paying us, but it does also increase, you know, the overtime, and the more hours in a day these officers work, I think, you know, it contributes to the stress and the lack of maybe, what do I want to say? They have a shorter fuse. And, you know, I think anything that keeps police out of school events and, you know, lessens the burden of overtime would be great.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So in regards to the item, you know, 270, we have a request from the school district and to set this up in response to what they would like for us to do. City Council has a committee that works directly with, I think it's called the 3-3-on-3. And so if this is not something that the council wants to support, then during that 3-3-on-3 meeting, this is something that you should raise with the city school district and school board and bring it back to the administration so that we can operate differently. But at this point in time, when we have a request from another municipality to provide services and they have to pay for those services, then we're obligated to actually bring that before council to vote on it. So that's why we're here, but I would employ council to utilize that meeting that you have to look at and evaluate all the agreements that we have with the city school district, and those that you do not like, you can talk to them about it and we can operate accordingly. Until then, we will be presenting these to you to either support or not support based on your own values.
So thank you for that clarity there, Madam Mayor. However, that 3-on-3 has been inactive for quite some time. We're working on, I think, trying to reactivate that, and that's been a struggle. But I'm sure that it's on Madam President's docket to try to get that back going. But we've been struggling trying to get that. So there really is no standard meetings that we're having consistently with the city school district right now. We haven't been having them in quite some time, but we'll definitely duly note that. I just wanted to point out before I want to come back to you, Councilmember Gruber, but I would like to ask Deputy Chief Simmons to tell us the sensitivity of this, because so my understanding is I believe one of our council members, Lachey, has to abstain potentially with this particular vote. So if we need this to pass, we need another vote in order for that to happen. So I just want to understand the significance for this not passing or being basically not going forward today. What is the significance of that, Deputy Chief Simmons and/or Mayor, whoever you may want to?
You can hold it in committee until Tuesday and bring it out of committee on Tuesday if you have enough votes for it.
Yeah, I think at this point, that's what I'm going to have to do. I think I'm going to hold this particular item until we have a little. Go ahead.
Mr. Vice President.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I understand there's a lot of sensitivity around police issues, but this is, and I don't want to belabor the point, but this item is something that was requested to us by another municipality. And who are we to tell the school district what services they can ask for as it relates to getting services from us? I mean, this is something that we get regularly from school districts. And if you go to any sporting event, there are police officers that handle the crowd control. So I just think that as it relates to other municipalities, please let's not get into the business of telling them what services they should and should not request from the city. It's a revenue source for us, and if another municipality wants to buy services from us, we should allow them to be able to do that. The other issue I understand that Councilmember Gruber was talking about, the overtime, I think that's a separate topic. But if the school district wants to buy food services or widgets from us, we can't tell them not to buy those services. And I think it's important that we make that point.
But Councilmember Evans, it's not a separate issue. That's my concern about this, because for the past 3 years that I've been on council, I've been trying to figure out how police overtime truly functions. And I've been looking across other cities to understand how police overtime functions. And it very much tends to be a black hole. And this is one of the reasons why, because here we are less than 1 month after we had spirited debate about police overtime, that we have 4 introductories this month, less than a month after the budget hearings, that amend the budget to add overtime costs. And this is how it spirals out of control.
Yeah, Councilmember Gruber, I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, Councilmember Gruber, just for clarification, I'm not talking about the overtime. I'm talking about the buying of services. I'm not dealing with that issue. What I'm talking about is if the school district requests something from us, what I'm saying is that's the issue I'm talking about, not the overtime issue or anything else. I'm saying when another municipality, in this case the school district, is saying that they want to buy an item from us, what I'm saying is that we have to be careful in telling them what they can and cannot buy from us. I'm not talking about the overtime issue. I'm not even touching that issue. I'm just talking about the buying of services. And I would say the same thing for pencils or books or anything else. If we have personal issues that we want to talk to the school district with, I think a council member should do that offline. But as a practice, I've been around city government for a long time. I don't think we've ever told another municipality that they should not buy a service from us. That's the only point I'm making. Not anything about overtime. I'm not weighing in on that. I'm just talking about.
I hear both of you, Madam Mayor. I think you wanted to chime in. I thought I heard you chiming in there.
Yeah, I just really want to be clear because I understand Councilmember Gruber's frustration And I want to be clear as to what we are adding. These are not funds that the city just pulled out of thin air. What we are adding is dollars to the budget that we're receiving from other sources. And those sources actually would pay the overtime. So in this particular case, in item number 270, the school district has asked for the city to provide a service to them at their particular events that would go with crowd control. And so I don't know if people remember last year, I believe the year before last, there was an event that took place at a city stadium, and it was a melee. And we did not have enough officers. We did not have enough school resource officers. We did not resource officers, school safety officers, security, and many children and elderly people were caught up in the dispute. When there's a number of different events that we have with basketball games and other things like that, I agree. I, for one, do not believe in criminalizing people, nor do I believe in, making sure that children, when they walk into a school building, have to go through metal detectors. Those are issues that I think that, for me are very serious. Suburban schools don't have to go through it. Why should city schools have to go through going through metal detectors? So I think that there's a number of different issues that can be worked on, but as it specifically pertains to overtime, these programs are programs that or grants that we have received from the federal or state government or from another municipality asking us to provide those services. Under the current situation, when we ask our officers to do or go above and beyond the work that is in their daily or their daily work, then we have to compensate them just as you would compensate a lawyer. That if you ask them to do more, then you're going to have to pay more. If you go to the doctor, you would have to pay the doctor more. There's nothing different in this than any other profession. And so to say that we're asking officers to do something above and beyond what they were hired to do, and we're compensating them for that, I think that we need to keep things in perspective. And I want to be very clear as to what is being added. And these are not dollars that are coming out of the city's budget. These are dollars that we are receiving from other entities that is asking of our officers to do something different or to do something outside of their normal hours of operations. And that if it was a DES person that we were asking to come in on overtime to do certain things, no one would have a problem with that. If it was a firefighter that we was asking to come in on overtime to do something outside of their work, no one would have a problem with that. And so let's not get caught up in the moment of the day and not do the work of the people, because that's what we're obligated to do.
I understand, and I assure you, I'm not being caught up in the moment of the day. I have been very consistent since stepping on to this council about my concern about police overtime. It's not, you're correct. It would not be an issue if it was DES overtime. There's also not scores of literature written about how police overtime is harming city budgets across the nation. I mean, there is scores about that. There's not scores about DES folks harming city budgets across the nation. And the fact is that on the one hand, I feel like during the budget hearing, I spent 10 minutes asking what I thought were very pointed questions, and the response that I continued to hear over and over again was, we can't do anything to curb this because that is the way the budget is written. And then literally within a month of us passing that budget, and we're adding more. And I understand someone else is asking us to do that, and I get it. And honestly, this particular introductory, if you want to hold it, Vice President, because it's particular to the city school district, I might change my mind on this one in particular, but 274, which we're going to get to later, in the responses from agenda review, it says specifically, because granite funds we get every year. We know that every year. And it says specifically, we should start to incorporate this into the annual budget. We should give it to you in June instead of giving it to you in July. And I don't feel like I, as a single council member, have any control over what happens with police overtime, except to be able to draw my line in the sand and vote no on these particular ones. So I recognize that does not float everyone's boat. I understand that, but that is my prerogative, and that's what I'm going to do at this particular moment.
Absolutely, Councilman
And
Gruber.
Councilmember, you are well within your right to do that. But let me be very clear that at the budget hearing, we did not state that there was nothing that we could do about police overtime. What we said is that if an officer is required to do something outside of their normal duties, then they are entitled to overtime. And that is based on the contract. And so we're not saying anything different today than we said then. When it comes down to these contracts that we're talking about for overtime, it is clearly stating that in this particular case, the officer is being asked to do traffic duty at an event that's not a city event, and therefore a city sponsored event, and therefore they will be paid the overtime from the school district. When you look at the granite, we're asking them, it's a specific task force, a specific job that they are being asked to do, and therefore we are accepting those dollars to pay the overtime. And so let's not confuse this. And I think that one has nothing to necessarily do with the other, because when it comes down to our overtime in our police department, is it high? But we ask them and we require for them to do more, A, because of the contract, B, because of the things that people have requested of us to do, like with the city school district or particular task force that we have them working on. And so if you don't want to do any of those things, if you don't want the officers doing any of those things, then by all means, you can vote no, and they don't have to do all those things. We don't have to have them crossing, working with the Blue Cross Arena. We would get sued because we got sued in the past. These are right to work opportunities that we have in our contract. And so, you want to renegotiate the Locust Club contract. We are in a process. We don't have a current contract right now. We are in the process of doing that. And so I just think that we need to be very clear on what we're talking about here. And one is okay, for services that we're going above and beyond about with either the school district or granite funds that we're getting in, and that's one thing, versus, okay, somebody decided to call out and therefore an officer was paid overtime. They are two separate issues, and I don't want them to get joined together.
Understood. And I can't tell you enough that I appreciate the work that you and the chief and the deputy chief, I know all of you have told me in the budget hearings that there are a lot of things that the administration is doing to try to curtail overtime. But again, I don't have a problem with RPD officers going to the games, the football games, which there probably won't be this year, but I have no problems with them going to the football games if that's what the school district is asking us for. That's not my concern. My concern is that we have an overtime budget that last year I asked from day one of last year's budget hearing to be able to account for and have a sense of what's happening. And it regularly feels like it is a place where it's just a black hole and we cannot control for it. And maybe this is just my personal need for some element of control over this, is I cannot in good faith vote yes on amending the budget by however many hundreds of thousands of dollars is being asked in the next 5 introductories to add money for the very thing that I asked to control for last year. So I understand, once again, that's not going to please a lot of people. And I understand that it can be twisted to say, I don't want security at sporting events when that's not truly the case. The case is I want some level of control over overtime. The way that truly happens is getting back to the negotiating table. And I commend you and your administration for doing that, Mayor, and I look forward to it happening.
Thank you, Councilman Gruber. I have 4 council members on my public safety committee. And so one has to abstain. One, we've heard very vehemently about how he feels about this particular issue. I'd like to hear from Councilperson Jackie Ortiz. How do you feel?
I think this is a very complex issue, one for many reasons that's been stated already at the table. Obviously, if these events occur, you can't not have the resources they've requested. I know that's overly simplistic, and I know that it is a complex issue, but at the same time, I do remember what happened with the specific events that occurred. And as much as I also agree with you, Mitch, that, you know, this is an area that we most certainly need to work on. I also don't necessarily want our community members to necessarily be without if that is what they requested. So I think there's certainly more conversation that has to be had here, but it was a big debacle the last time, and I don't necessarily think we want to go through that again either.
Thank you, council member. Listen, I'm going to put this on hold for now. I'm gonna try to get to a better place by next week. But we're gonna hold 270 until further notice, and we're gonna move into introductory number 271.
I have a question, comment.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so look, we keep saying the word overtime, but I don't see these as being the same overtime issues. When we charge for special events, we charge at the overtime rate. In this instance, it's a school district saying, hey, we would like to pay that overtime rate to have some officers there. Now, if you don't want to pay the overtime, that's fine. If you don't want to provide the service, and that goes for any of the services, that's fine. But then that means either A, they're going to go without the coverage, and then what happens, and normally what could well then happen is that then instead of having the extra officers on duty to preclude a problem, you end up drawing the entire shift over there when there is a problem, and you lose coverage for the rest of the city. So if you don't want to pay overtime, I mean, I don't really know how you get around paying overtime, because that's the rate that we charge for special events, unless you're going to hire a significant number more officers and make all of these events part of the regular duty of a particular area during a particular season. I don't think we're doing that. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable, Mitch, for us to ask that we have a closer accounting of overtime. But we're going to pay overtime.
Right.
And as one of the other council members was saying, you know, it's one thing for someone to call off from work and you got to pay overtime, but that happens too, especially in the environment that we're in now. That happens too. This isn't easy. There are a lot of folks who want overtime, which is part of your concern too. They get to a particular point in their career and they want overtime. Well, if you want the overtime and we've got the work and we've got the funding, and the funding source isn't the city of Rochester, we're not losing. We're getting a community need met.
It's not about losing, and you're right. We're gonna have to have over.
Stand by. Hold on. Point of order. We're done with comments with 270. Okay. I'm taking my executive thing here, and we're done with that. Okay, because this is not about overtime. Overtime is a part of doing business. We know that. People may disagree on how that's being done. That's a conversation for another day. We're tabling 270, which means we're tabling comments and conversations about 270 as well too. We've exhausted that, I believe, at this point. We're not going to solve that tonight. Okay, so we're moving to introduction number 271, authorizing an agreement for the Department of Justice Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program grant. Any questions, comments, and/or concern? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a comment or a question. Sorry. So I asked about these situations when police would wear N95 masks, and it's for an encounter that results in aerosolization, such as a nebulizer use, CPAP, or intubation. And I'm just wondering when the RPD would come in contact with that kind of a situation to precipitate the need for an N95 mask.
So there are times where officers respond to assist rural metro or the fire department with medical calls. And in an instance where a victim or patient, if you will, may need those medical services and the officer is unseen, then it would be appropriate for the officer to wear the proper protection equipment to ensure their safety.
Is this something that they carry around, like everybody would have their own and they would just have it on hand in case?
Correct. Each officer was provided an opportunity for an N95 fit test and issued N95 mask. They are required to wear those masks and keep them in their bag when they're not wearing them. So that way, if they're dispatched to a medical type call, they have an opportunity to put it on before they leave the car.
Okay. Not to press you further, but I heard two words, required and opportunity to. Is it optional to have the mask, or is it required?
It is required. What I said was an opportunity to have the fit test. Officers
Okay.
were given multiple opportunities over a 4-week period to come in and get a proper fitting. But the requirement for N95 or a surgical mask is a requirement.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 271? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So it's been moved by Jackie, second by Lachey. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we have one no. Madam Clerk,
Okay, was that Councilmember Gruber?
that's correct.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-1 into the record with Councilmember Gruber voting no.
All right, introduction number 272, authorizing the mandatory agreement for conflict counseling services. Any questions, comments, and/or concern? If not, I entertain a motion.
I just want to clarify. So originally I read this as that the city pays to represent the employee, but this sounds like this is for representing RPD. Is that true?
Correct. The conflict attorney represents the city.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have it moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introduction number 273, amending the 2020-21 Police Department budget and appropriating federal forfeiture funds to acquire seized vehicles. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns?
Move
If
it.
not,
I do
I'm
have a
sorry.
quick question.
Councilperson Lee?
Thank you. In response to my question, what circumstances would the car be seized? The answer was vehicles are usually seized by the federal government and determined that the property was attained utilizing illegal funds. Just wondering what criteria is applied to determine if it was bought by using illegal funds.
There are legal requirements and I don't have that readily available. We can certainly research that and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilperson Harris, second by who?
Me.
All right, second by Mr. Gruber. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk?
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Okay, introductory number 274, appropriating the funds and amending the budget for the operation of the Greater Rochester Area Narcotics Enforcement Team. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move it.
I just want to say that I'm just generally concerned about the program. I haven't yet had a chance to dig into the KPIs from the budget to that goes into the effectiveness. I will do that, but I'm concerned with the partnerships with some of the other departments. I do see that it doesn't give information around immigration to the Department of Homeland Security, which is good to see, but just wanted to log that concern.
Duly noted. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move it.
Been moved. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. One, no, Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-1 into the record with Councilmember Gruber voting no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 275, authorizing an agreement related to the Gun-Involved Violence Elimination Initiative Grant. Any questions, comments, or concern? If not,
Yeah, I do. I noticed, thank you. I noticed that the give salaries have changed significantly. It looks like the director is 71,000 and the analyst is 56,000. But in the chart provided, it says from the last year, from 1920, the director was 110,000 and the analyst 87,000. Just wondering if you can give an explanation of why those salaries changed.
I, again, don't have the information readily available, so we can research that and get back to you.
Thank you.
all right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
Nay.
All right, Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 3-1 into the record with Councilmember Gruber voting no.
Introductory number 276, authorizing a mandatory agreement for vehicle towing services. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns?
I do.
Councilperson Lupien.
In reference to stolen vehicles, if they've been recovered, the answer, whether or not the owner would have to pay to get them back, and the answer was they would have to pay to get them back, but in most cases, expenses incurred are covered by auto insurance. But I could be wrong, but I think many auto insurances only cover one tow, which would be to the lot, and the tow home, if it was incapacitated, would have to be covered out of pocket. And I just want to note the concern that if someone has their vehicle stolen, that we would have to charge them to get it back. That doesn't sound right to me. So I just want to log that concern.
Thank you for that.
Can I just ask a question because I want to get clarification? So,
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Lupien, your suggestion is that taxpayers would pay for the tow?
It's a good question. There's other funds that get given to the city that we could use to cover that money, or some other kind of partnership. But I don't.
If you want to come up with a fund in this case and work with a partner to actually fund this, we would gladly create a fund for this. But without that, then the cost would be borne by taxpayers.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. Oh, there you go, Jackie. Any opposed, say, thank you. Any opposed, say no or nay? All right, Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
All right, introductory number 277, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement for veterinarian technology students externship. Any questions, comments, and concerns about this? If not, I entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Move. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion introduction passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introductory number 278, authorizing the receipt and use of the United States Department of Homeland Security funds to investigate organized narcotics, traffics, and violence. Any questions, comments, and concerns? Councilperson Lupien.
Hello. In 274, I asked the question if that grant covered all of the costs for funding the program, and does it receive any other funding? And the answer was no, it doesn't. But in this introductory, it receives more funding. So I guess I just wanted to clarify around that. Does Granite receive other grant funding other than what 274 provides and what 278 provides?
So 278 doesn't necessarily mean it's going directly to Granite funding. It can go to our special investigation section, who also, we have multiple teams that deal with narcotic investigations. So this money may not go to Granite as we explained in 274.
But it could.
There's a possibility that a investigation could, intercept with another, but the money is not allocated towards Granite.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason I noted that is that in the question about how many man hours does the 9,500 represent and what units or departments receive the money, the answer was the number of hours can vary, but the funds represent approximately 120 to 150 hours, which will be used by Granite members.
Yep, I would make sure that we clarify that, but this money is not allocated for Granite.
Got it. Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
All right. Introductory number 279, authorize an agreement and budgeting for Animal Services Pet Foster Care Stimulus Grant. Any questions, comments, and/or concern? I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 280, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of 1,136,000 bonds of said city to finance the replacement of one engine pumper at the Lowell Avenue Firehouse and one engine pumper at the North Clinton Avenue Firehouse. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 281, authorizing a mandatory agreement related to firefighter recruit training. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 282, appropriating funds for the smoke and carbon monoxide detector installation program. I would just like to ask, if Chief, I think the Chief is on board. How are we doing with our smoke detector program? I mean, I remember years ago, even when I worked in community relations, that this was a really well-received program by the citizens. And a lot of our citizens, I think, still don't realize that they can get a free smoke detector and/or a free carbon monoxide detector. So I just kind of wanted to know how is this program going? What's your anticipation for reaching more people, and just get your kind of overall input on that, sir.
So yeah, the program's still going on, and we, due to COVID, we haven't been able to do as many 311 installs as we normally do. We're a little bit backed up, but our program continues to go on. Whenever our firefighters go out on a call, they still check for a smoke alarm or CO alarm. So it's going well. I have been on WDKX promoting the fact that the city will provide a smoke alarm or CO alarm to any of our residents who call 311, and we are still continuing that program. We, due to COVID, we haven't been able, the festivals are one of the places where we get out and we actually promote that. And because of the cancellation of the festivals this summer, that kind of put us a little bit behind in our promotions, but we're still getting calls and we'll find other ways to promote that. But yes, we still are, our program is going well. And you're right, we have been entrenched in this program for over 20 years. And I think we kind of lead the nation in this program. And we've partnered with Johns Hopkins to actually study our program, which has done really well. So, we're going to continue that for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. I think it's one of the most preventive things we can do to preventing fire harms within our community. And I'm glad to support this. And I hope my other colleagues will as well too. Thank you, Chief.
No, thank you for asking.
Any other questions, comments, and or concerns?
Move it.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Okay, introduction number 283, authorizing an agreement for the Champion Academy Mentoring and Empowerment Initiative. Any questions, comments, or concern?
Just one. I saw that, sorry, just one.
Go ahead, Council Member Gruber.
I saw the note back that they're not going to be meeting in person this year. It's really a shame. It's an amazing program. I've had a chance to work with them every year since they started. I just want to be, is any of this money going to make sure that the students have laptops and wireless, or is that already known that they're all connected?
So they've already been connected. Certainly, if there's any need, we'll work to see what we can do to support that. But they've been connected, and they will be doing some small group, in-person one-on-one work with their mentors as well.
This is Roland Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, and I too agree with you, Council Member Gruber. Maybe you'll work with me at one point, because I don't think Roland's ever gotten his parade as well either. We have very few champions, world champions in our city, and maybe we'll work together one day on with the Champion Academy of making that happen for our champion Roland Williams. But if there's no other questions, comments, or concerns, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 284, authorizing an agreement for a competitive swimming program for youth. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I want to ask this question because it came up in the barbershop today, Commissioner Torres. One of the clients was saying that they were visiting the Genesee Valley pool, and they were saying that it seemed to be extremely overcrowded. No one had on a mask, and they just felt like it just had an appearance of being unsafe due to COVID. Can you just speak to what precautions you're taking in our swimming pools and in our facilities, and also does chlorine, does it kill coronavirus?
Well, so I'll answer that one first. The health department that sanctions and monitors of the use of pools has released guidance that there's no indication that coronavirus survives in water at all. So pools were deemed safe to be opened. You cannot wear a mask in the pool. You cannot wear a mask, as you're getting in and out of the pool. So we have all of the capacity guidelines in place. They're posted. Our staff, our lifeguards are making sure that we rotate on during pool sweep times. We rotate residents out every 45 minutes to give opportunity for other residents. During pool sweep, they're not being charged to swim, so that we can ask to have the time limit. And we have all of the appropriate capacity guidelines posted, and the lifeguards are maintaining that. So when people are outside of the pool deck, they are wearing masks. That is required. We are doing temperature checks at registration at check-in. So we have a number of protocols in place, and they have been working.
Good. I know that our citizens, it's been very, very hot. And even I have been wanting to go over there and jump in the pool because it's just been that hot. So I appreciate the fact that we've been able to bring some relief and some recreation and some fun to our citizens and doing it in a safe manner. So I commend you for overseeing that. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns concerning this introductory? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 285, authorizing funding and an agreement for La Marcata at the International Plaza. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I just love a timeline of when we can expect things to open there. It looks, every time I walk by, it looks great.
At this time, we're targeting late September based on the construction schedule that we have, but we will keep you posted as that gets closer and can be firmed up.
Are there a lot of vendors showing interest?
Yes, we've had a number of vendors reach out through our in-person and then virtual sessions once COVID was, the factor. And we've had a number of conversations, and vendors who we've worked with in other market days have expressed interest. So we are expecting our introductory market days to have, to be full of vendors.
Can't wait.
Councilperson Ortiz, I know you've been heavily involved in this. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'm just as equally excited about it as well, and look forward to the partnership and seeing some additional activity there, right? We're doing great with even the grass lot, but this is gonna be 1,000 times better. So I look forward to it.
Awesome. So if no other questions, comments, concerns, I entertain a motion.
Move it.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 286, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $2,500,000 bonds of said city to finance the replacement of mobile and portable radio equipment and the installation of a new station alerting system for the Rochester Fire Department. I just want to say that finally we're getting to this, Chief, and to see that they're also putting in a new station alerting system, which I know at one point in time we were talking about that being compromised or not happening. And when I first joined the fire department, as you know, I remember pulling shifts of watch, and I remember how much of a blessing it was to no longer have to stay up all night long and to be able to get some relief, especially for a busy night, with station alerting. So I'm so grateful for this, but I still have my concerns about the trunk radio systems. I still have some concerns about some of that, but if you would like to speak to any input about this new radio system briefly, I'll give you that opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. Yes, so we're still, we really don't have a choice. We have to transition to the trunk system. The rest of the county is actually transitioning on August 3rd. We're going to probably be transitioning a little later, depending on the timelines of our purchases and implementation of some equipment. I'm excited about going to it. We still have a lot of testing to do. COVID has actually pushed back our testing processes. So I'm excited like you. The station alerting RFP has just been completed, and we will be presenting that to City Council hopefully in the next upcoming months, and we'll be able to show you how that is going to be a benefit to the firefighters, help with some of the health issues that are going on, some of the sleep deprivation that goes on with firefighters. So as you know, and you recognize, this is going to be a great improvement for our firefighters, and it also is going to help with our response time. So I'm definitely excited about that. We have some great opportunities here. So I'm looking forward to the implementation process. I hope once it's done, we can get City Council to come to the firehouses and see some of the improvements that will be implemented. So thank you very much. I'm glad that you recognize that, because that is important to the firefighter.
It's been a long time coming, and I'm glad to finally that we're getting down this road, and I'm grateful that this is going to be an addition to the department, and it's going to be helping with health issues and various other issues. I look forward to being a part of that tour when we put that together. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I just have a comment that I think will get to the heart of the issue on police overtime. I'm gonna have our data folks and our department of budget look at if we can aggregate the data that will break down what overtime costs are specifically for police officers calling in and having to fill a shift versus officers that are called in for a specific purpose versus special events versus a special program. If we can, like Granite or something like that, if we can aggregate this data, then council can tell us which program they don't want us to fund and don't want to send officers to. And so we can break that down into very specific pots. I think that we get to the heart of the issue, because there is a overall sort of understanding, as I'm hearing today, that overtime is based on, is being utilized in a way that is not productive for the city's budget. And I don't think that the administration agrees with that assessment. And so we need to break that down in a way that shows that this amount, whether it's $1 million or whatever, is for officers calling in and not showing up for work, and we have it to refill that, versus different segments or programs that we must provide officers for that goes above in the over and above their duties. So for example, when we do food distribution at different sites like the public market, we do have officers there that's outside of what they're required to do, but we do it anyways. So we're going to break that out so we can make sure that what we are assigning officers to can be documented, and the money that we're spending for that can be documented.
Thank you, Mayor.
Maybe we could have a work session on it. It sounds great.
Yeah, we'll look at
it. All right, thank you. Introductory number 286, concerning the installation of new station alerting system and radios. I'm entertaining a motion.
Moved.
Second. Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introductory number 293, authorizing a grant agreement for the 2020 Cool Suite program. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you very much. If there is no other business to come before the Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation Committee.
Actually, Willie, I do. I just have something I'd like to
Councilperson
say.
Luthien.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to bring this up. There's been a number of incidents over the past couple of weeks with the 10-year-old being handcuffed, with the incident that happened on Bay Street, and an incident that I witnessed yesterday on Greeley near my house, where I feel like it's clear that officers do not receive trauma-informed training. And Councilmember Gruber and I viewed the video. We did have that discussion with the chief, and I believe the answer was no, they don't. And separate from the whole conversation about reimagining police, which is critical, but I would urge the department to look at trauma-informed training, because many, from working in the schools, I see the difference that trauma makes in response. And I see it in the people who have been, arrested either for, obstruction of governmental administration or disorderly conduct, and to really be able to know how to de-escalate those situations, because I think, what we're seeing, it could very easily be avoided if officers had those skills and understanding trauma response in the person that they're dealing with, but also in themselves and how they respond to situations. So I have the fortune of having an aide who has a doctorate in counseling, and she has drafted up some resources and some situations of, you know, what officers may encounter and how it could be different understanding the trauma response. So I'm going to send that over to you. And I'd also just, you know, like to acknowledge that Councilmember Gruber was part of those conversations.
Thank you. We'll definitely take a look at it. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So if there is no other business to come before the Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation Committee, we are adjourned. So BJ, we have our public hearing. Are we staying on the same line or are we coming back?
Yes, we are staying right here and you can start the public hearings whenever you are ready.
I'm ready. All right. So the meeting will come to order and the clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Evans.
Present.
Councilmember Gruber.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lupian.
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Pio.
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
President Scott.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for the public hearings tonight. Tonight's hearings will be broadcasted live on our YouTube channel and linked on our Facebook page, as well as broadcasted on City 12 TV. We have provided the public the opportunity to share comments for our public hearings tonight. Individuals will be able to send comments in writing via mail or directly to the council email. We will now begin the public hearings.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing an amendatory agreement and geometric changes for the East Main Street Improvement Project. Introductory number 263. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard. We have Arian Adrison.
Dear City Council, I'm writing out of concern regarding the decision to alter the May 2019 final plan and move parking between Federal Street and Quincy Street from the north side to the south side of East Main Street. I understand that this decision was made to accommodate the businesses on the south side of the street, but it fails to take into consideration the greater parking needs on the north side. Residents of multifamily residences with inadequate off-street parking, such as myself and the many residents at the 1520 through 1524 East Main apartment that have no off-street parking options, are already forced to compete for parking with patrons of nearby businesses, especially the East Main Express store, also at 1520 East Main. Restricting parking to an inadequate 12 spaces and placing them on the south side of the street will only cause more issues for the people who need the parking the most. Additionally, the placement of the nearest crosswalk at Quincy Street doesn't address the needs of the foot traffic in the area. As a nearby resident, I observed the large amount of foot traffic heading to the East Main Express. A lot of unsafe jaywalking occurs near East Main Street and Sydney Street, forcing many driving patrons of the store to also cross East Main Street, who will only cause the unsafe crossing to increase. I would argue that the store sees more patrons than all of the businesses on the south side of that section of East Main combined, making a strong case to build the intersection at Sydney Street and to keep parking on the north side. Please reconsider altering the original plan and keep on-street parking on the north side of East Main Street. And please reconsider the placement of the Quincy Street crosswalk. Thank you.
Juanita Ball.
Parking lanes are not superfluous just because you don't see cars parked there when you drive by. Non-residential uses of parking lanes, RTS rider pickup and discharge, FedEx, UPS, and mail delivery truck parking, taxi, Medicab, and school bus, rider pickup and discharge, caretaker and physical therapist parking, takeout restaurant order pickup, business and shop client parking, visitor parking, and pullover space to allow emergency vehicle passage, especially if there's no center turning lanes. Homeowners will lose house value and be discouraged from maintaining their homes. No one will want to buy a house that has inadequate parking. Houses will deteriorate and be abandoned. Businesses will leave, and in 10 years, East Main will be a ghost street. Lower property values mean lower property taxes. Drivers are very impatient, especially when they have been used to not being held up by cars making left turns and buses stopping to pick up passengers. There will be accidents caused by cars trying to pass the unmoving vehicle. Where there is no parking lane or center turning lane, they will enter the oncoming traffic lane. It has been demonstrated that there will be an economic value to East Main, downtown, or the city by having sidewalk level bicycle tracks in this location, probably because there is none.
Thank you. If there is no more speakers, that hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing geometric changes to pavement widths adjacent to 275 East Avenue, Inner Loop Transformation Site 3, introductory number 265. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
We did not receive any comments for that item.
Thank you. If there are no speakers, this hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: approving geometric changes on Exchange Boulevard and the receipt of funding for electrical and lighting improvements related to the West River Wall Segment 1 project. Introductory number 266. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
We received no comments on that item.
So if there are no speakers, this hearing is closed. That concludes, I'm sorry. That concludes our, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say that was it.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public hearing. The legislation for these hearings will be voted on at our city council meeting on Tuesday, July 21st at 7:30 p.m. and will also be conducted using Zoom. Thank you all. We are adjourned. All right.